Good evening, Mother Moore. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be getting started shortly. Just going to give some time for some people to come on in. So come on in the room, everybody. As you're coming in, tag and share. Tag your friends. Tell a friend. Tell a neighbor. Destiny Community is on the air. Share with your friends, your network. Tag somebody on this. You don't want to miss this dialogue. We're going to have a good time tonight as we dialogue and deal with some potent information, excuse me. Some things that we want to consider during this time. I hope you all are doing well and your families are well. Praying that you had a good day today, that you were able to enjoy the day. Just going to give a few more moments before we get started tonight. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear us good. Let us know if we're coming through clear. You can hit that heart or that like button. Let us know you're hearing us good. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I see some more coming on in. Why don't you let us know who's in the room? Type it on your screen and just let us know who's here so we can acknowledge your presence. We appreciate you coming on in. Why don't you type it on in, let us know who's in the room with us tonight. All right. Let's get going. So tonight we're going to do our Destiny Community Rewind. This is where we recap during our Life Enrichment session. We dive in a little deeper into the word that has been shared on our Sunday worship celebrations. And I have with me our pastor, our leader, His Grace, the Bishop Ernest Moore Jr. How you doing, Bishop?
I am well. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you with us tonight as we dialogue and dig a little deep into the word that was shared. We're dealing with something that is cutting edge, something that is unprecedented. Going into a space, a region in our minds that we haven't tapped into yet, and coming away with a deeper awareness. And we're dealing with a series called Living Beyond Measure, or Immeasurable Thinking. Living Beyond Measure. And Bishop has been leading us through that series, and we've uncovered some mind-blowing concepts and revelations that is taking us to a deeper place in our development of our spirituality, our belief system, and our knowledge of God. And so let's dive in a little deeper tonight, Bishop. You were dealing with on Sunday morning, you came from Ephesians chapter 1, dealing with Paul. And the title of the message was Lord, Open My Eyes. Am I right about that?
Yes, that's what I preached on Sunday.
Lord, open my eyes. Bless you, Deacon Smith. Glad you're here with us on tonight. Lord, open our eyes. And what you were trying to get us to understand, and you were unpacking this concept of the eye of our understanding being enlightened. And we're going to get into that a little bit later in the dialogue. But we want to open it up, our dialogue tonight, dealing with a few things. And as we're dialoguing, you all feel free to chime in. Put your comments on the screen, put your questions on the screen, and we will try to address those as we flow through our session on tonight. But let's open it up and start right here. And you're dealing with this proposition of the immeasurable and that which can't be measured, going beyond a level of thinking that we've never tapped into. Bless you, Deacon Wilson. Thank you for joining us on tonight. and living beyond average. What is that concept? Where did that come from? What birthed that concept?
Well, all of my messages I like to believe are divinely inspired, and the whole immeasurable concept come out of Ephesians chapter 3. We talk about it from the from the King James translation that talks about him now unto him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we are able to ask or to think according to the power that worketh within you. But as I was looking at it in the NIV, it talked about the immeasurable greatness. And Paul is challenging the church of Ephesus to move beyond what they have been practicing, what they have been believing, because our practices always are a result of our belief. If you want to know what people believe, then look at how they are practicing their everyday lives. And Paul was now trying to transform a community that was under the oppression of the Roman Empire, who was a monarchy that was a tyranny that conquered Europe and now North Africa. And so Paul is a Roman citizen who is a government employee, and he's a government employee working through the agency of the Jewish synagogue. And Paul has a conversion or a transformative moment down on the road of Damascus as he was going to persecute the children of the way, those persons who had been impacted by the ministry of Jesus Christ, and they were exploring a new way of living. Jesus declared, I believe in the Gospel of John, to his disciples, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so that Gospel of John was to the Johannine community, and all of these Gospels are to communities and have target populations and demographics that the Gospels are designed for. But Paul writes an epistle of to this community in Ephesus that now he's using his own personal experience with this Jesus the Christ that he never met, but he persecutes those who follow this Jesus Christ. But he has a personal encounter on the road of Damascus that causes him to change the way he's practicing his faith, the way he believes his faith impacts community. And so my proposition is in this particular series, which is immeasurable, living beyond average, immeasurable, living beyond a measure, is simply a proposition that community transformation happens when leadership has personal development. And so I'm challenging, because I believe in the community. Leadership is leadership comprises of people who have gone through a transformation in order to bring change in their time and space, and which is your generation, that will create I could be lofty and say the more of God, or God's plan that was not revealed in times past. So my proposition is that we must be transformed in order to change our world. So I am looking at all of the things that will help us um, be in a transformation, if I put a term to it, that will go through spiritual formation. That because we as a faith community, as a church, our main objective is to foster spiritual maturity and formation so that people can go back to life and live out what they have been transformed into being in their time and their spaces. So that's my proposition. My proposition is throughout this whole series is to foster spiritual formation or personal development in order to change our world. We must do it.
Absolutely. Would you liken the Church of Ephesus during this time of their condition, where they are in their region and dealing with the government that they're dealing with? Would you liken them to where we are as a people today dealing with the conditions of our society?
Almost definitely. And we are America, land of the free. But the history trajectory of America lets us know that the land of the free was a creation to secure the wealth of a fraction of the newly formed America. And so if you parallel, although we have a different polity or different construct called capitalism in our culture, it is likened unto the Roman Empire that divided and conquered territories in order to rule over for the profitable gain of that system. And so Paul is living in Roman oppression. And we don't want to acknowledge it, but a part of us breaking into immeasurable thinking and thought, we must understand the system in which we live in. We live in a system of have and have nots, and that have and have nots has been socially constructed by those who conquered and in my mind I want to say looted and shooted, but I better not go there. That may strike some fires, but the truth of the matter is those that formed this country and the history that they took from the native persons or Indians, however you want to classify or name them, when they took that land and constructed a system, it had within it an oppressive construct and structure that will guarantee that there will be some people that will have and some that will have not. And it is all constructed in this um, capitalism. That capitalism fosters competition, that you compete to get a portion that's available, and not seeing that most things that are available to you are privately owned, and it shifts you from being a producer to being a consumer to get what you need. And so, in some sense, that's enslavement that goes undetected most of the time. But that measure, that structure is there, just like um, the structure of the age of Paul. And so, yes, I would liken our scenario to Paul's scenario, living under oppression.
Yeah, you were leading us Sunday along those same lines to be countercultural to that way or that system, and you said it in these terms. We have to develop a society, a community that is inclusive by choice
Yes,
and not exclusive by structure.
yes.
Very, very powerful. I want us to dig into that a little bit deeper. Can you unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, exclusion will eventually happen in any culture, especially if people have free will and free choice. Because if what you are producing is not the will of persons, they will choose not to be a part of your community or your system. But when your system is constructed in a way that it always reproduces the same kind of people getting goods and services and owning businesses, that's a structure that even if you don't have the same people, we no longer have the founding fathers among us or those persons that spearheaded the Reconstruction, the Jim Crow laws, even the Civil Rights movement. But even now in the 21st century, we are experiencing the same type of disproportionate realities for a certain group of people. That is a structure that exists that we have got to demand justice, and demanding justice is not just peaceful protest, that's a beginning, but until we overthrow the structure and recreate another structure, which I believe going from justice to jubilee. And this is what I think Paul was trying to do with the church of Ephesus. He was trying to say to them, it is time for you to look at your reality as it is. Jerusalem, and even in the church, because you have to, the faith community of that time, and which is uh, the church, like a lot of people like to talk about the church, the book of Acts. Now, even that Jerusalem faction that Jesus left behind is not sanctioning Paul, and Paul comes to a great awakening that my transformation even have to transcend the latest movement. They protested and went to protested a Pentecost, got up in that upper room until the Spirit came, but somewhere along that journey they got stuck. And now Paul has another mandate through his conversion to go to Rome and to in, create an inclusive environment. That inclusive environment is challenged by the new movement as well as those who are trying to embrace what does this new faith look like and how do we translate our faith into our now reality. And that's what I think Paul is addressing in this epistle. And so we started the series in chapter 3, and Paul clearly talks and identifies that generations prior to his doing did not have this imagination or vision or
Mm-hmm.
a mandate from God, and now he calls it a mystery and goes down further in chapter 3 and say, this is now my life work, that I help you comprehend this mystery of God for your time and space.
Yeah. You know, that system that we find ourselves living under has done an excellent job of setting up a structure that excludes some, like you say, and it causes us to envy or want what they have. Those who oppress us, it causes us to pursue what they have. But I was saying on the live I did the other day that we don't want we don't want to be equal. We don't want what y'all have. We want equity. We want what's ours. That's different. You know, being equal with you saying I have what you have. You know, when you look at it from a mathematics standpoint, and equal means whatever's on this side is on the other side. So whatever you have, I have the same thing. No, we don't want what you have. We want what's due us.
We don't want your measure to measure our prosperity,
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm hearing you say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what immeasurable thinking beyond average, living beyond average is all about. We no longer want a structure, a status quo, a classism to dictate to us who we are and how we should live with our portion. And
Yeah.
the first thing we want you to do is give us our portion, which means the 400 years or our experience in this situation or leading up to this demand some reparations, whatever that would be. Whether it be, it's not, for me, it's more than just getting stimulus checks and money. It's about having some of the same advantages that will make up. Where's the 0% loans that you give us to build our communities and for redlining and for 400 years of profit off of our ancestral line? How do we get our children education or our education at 0% interest? Loans, not loans, but scholarships and grants for the things that will make us have a opportunity, cause us to have the opportunity to create our own life in this time and space. And now it is overdue. We must stand in that space saying we're going to own our own life, but you are going to have to give us what's due us in this country, in this time and this space. And Paul comes to the church at Ephesus, want to take them through a process of transformation. You cannot go, and one of the things that I'm very concerned about with us in this hour of where the racial tension is high, the COVID-19, is that we are not taking the time to get in a cocoon and be and go through a metamorphosis of who we be as a African American community, a black and brown community. And I am unapologetically intentional about coming to my people and my people within the people, because we have to. One of the things I'm very concerned about, even now, as this tension has come between the vice president candidate, Senator Harris, that I see a lot of, well, she's not black enough. Look, that's a measure. Race is a measure created by our country. But by experience, she's just as black as the rest of us because she fits in the color of the paper bag. I'm going way back. But not only that, by experience. By experience, she has been in the disproportionate group. And another construct, she represents not just race, but gender. And another construct, she also fits in is class. The three measures in this country that keep our people producing the same results.
Yeah. You know, when you were talking, I was hearing that, when we stay in the state that we're in, it causes us to go on this pursuit for equality versus what you're talking about is a pursuit of freedom. That I walk in my state of being, I'm walking in a state of freedom that I'm fully me. And that that state of freedom cannot be measured. You can't measure the totality of who I am because all of it has not been revealed to you yet.
And that's why on Sunday, bringing into where you left me earlier, Sunday's message was, Lord, open their eyes. And one of the things that in chapter 1, Paul extends a apostolic blessing on the people of grace and peace. I want God's ability to now strengthen you in your weak areas, your conditioning, living under oppression. First, grace to you, but not only grace, God's ability in your weakness, but also peace, the shalom, the wholeness of God, be extended to you now. And then he goes right in verse 17, talking about his prayer for this people, that the eye of their understanding or the eye of their heart, one translation said, be enlightened.
Now, let's get right into that because kind of that's like the crux of what we want to deal with tonight. You know, we those that have been in the church context have heard that scripture for many years. Lord, let the eye of your understanding be enlightened. Let's unpack that some more. Let's dig into that a little bit deeper and be mindful that you all that are tuning in, chime in, questions, comments. We want to hear from you. But Bishop, let's talk about Lord. He prays his prayer, Lord, let the eye of their understanding be enlightened.
Mm-hmm. One, you have to ask, well, what does that mean? The eye of their understanding. They living in a situation. They definitely have knowledge, but Paul points that eye of their understanding in two directions. One, in to knowing God, and two, knowing one another. So the eye of your understanding has to be what I would call the ability to think critically between the invisible and the visible. And how do you have healthy relationship with an invisible reality as well as the present reality that you're living in order to produce a better future for the whole community? So the eye of your understanding is, I would say, at this juncture, your ability to do critical thinking. And critical thinking for me is to discern your present situation. What am I living in right now? And how did I get here? And where am I going? You have got to now say, Lord, take me beyond, because Paul is very intentional in this epistle talking about the ancestral journey that they had to get here. Generations before us didn't know about this life because and when you go back in the history of Israel, this Jewish group that is now evolving, they have lived through, I think Dr. Jerome Ross says, 6 generations or 6 situations of oppression. And from being in Egyptian oppression under Pharaoh up until now, Paul is trying to get them to do some critical reflection so they can critique this moment and say, God has been with us all the way. But now we need to know God in this moment. God led them. God caused them to prosper. But this is our time to prosper. And now we need to know what is God's measure, not what is Caesar's measure, not what this government, Trump measure. I mean, not what our present situation is, but what is God saying to us? How is God challenging us to reimagine our world that we're going to live in according to who God made us? And how are we as a people going to get there together? Because we need to discern God in each one of us, that we will know the treasure within each one of us. And that's why Sunday I talked about you've got to have the knowledge of God, but you also have to have the knowledge of kinship.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that tonight because kinship, or as we say in the black community, your kinfolk. Um, that's a very popular term in our community, but I think we're looking at this through another lens, through another perspective, that your kinfolk may not always necessarily be those who you are maybe blood related to. It takes on another connotation to it. I want you to get into that a little bit.
Sure, who thinks like you now? Because now you're moving in a dimension of faith. And in order for us to become, we have to have a certain thought pattern. Paul had to understand the posse I left in Jerusalem. I thank God for Peter and all of them at Jerusalem, but they don't think like I think, because they don't have a Rome in their purpose and destiny. And I'll get stuck here with them. So I've got to move on. Even they doing some good stuff, and I won't knock them, but I've got to move beyond their measure and find those persons who will engage in thought with me about a, if I could use this term, more better reality than what exists. And this now becomes my opportunity to include those who have not been considered before, but yet are in the same predicament that I'm in.
So would you say that, because you hit on earlier, inclusive by choice, that you must be intentional about the choosing of your kinfolk?
You have to now engage with people. One of the problems that's going to happen is that people will protest. This peaceful protest right now is being co-opted because people have not taken the time to engage with the people that's walking with them, to know who is here for the cause and who is here for the destruction and to exploit us. We must understand that a part of us becoming who God called us to be, we must open our eyes to people who are around us through engagement. You have got to have the conversations with people, not to just joke and pass time. You have to really put the critical questions on the table and wrestle with people to see who really wants better, who wants to move beyond status quo and become the next measure. Because now, what I am not trying to say in this particular series is that we don't need any measure. What I'm saying is that we got to push a measure beyond what was so that we can set a bar for the next generation to take it somewhere else.
Absolutely.
But I am not trying to say remove the measure. I'm saying we're going from faith to faith and glory to glory. And if we're going to do that, we have got to pause and engage with one another until we be enlightened about who is God for us now, what is God's will for us now, and who is on our team or outside to collaborate with until we go beyond measure and establish the next measure. And that's what I think Paul is simply saying to the church at Ephesus in his prayer, at his inauguration or initial part of this epistle. Your eye, you have got the eye of your heart. This is your where your thoughts, and then your thoughts have got to regulate your emotions. You have got to get a love for a people that are in the same situation like you. We need to do, right now, and I'm not endorsing a candidate, but we need to understand what Camilla Harris represents in this moment in time, and what woman of color, to be more specific, represent. Two things we are behind in: race and gender, and class. I'm sure she does not come from the Rockefellers, being a graduate of Howard. If she came from the Rockefellers, she probably would have been at Harvard first. But she represents threefold in one in that space. And that's what we have to begin a dialogue. Yes, she has a past history. Another thing that Paul is saying to us is, if you are going to be inclusive and discern people, you got to give them opportunity to mature. People are in personal development, and that's ongoing. Personal development is not static; it is very fluid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have to, as we engage with one another, if we're going to go beyond measure, the things we know about people, rather than put a period there, put a comma there, and challenge people to grow along with us, not for us. And one of the things I want to challenge us as we go into the polls is stop having a mindset that your politicians are going to do something for you, and get with them and make them, hold them accountable, and make them work with you according to what God has revealed to you about this now moment.
Yeah, because there's another a thought process that comes with this that says, if my understanding is going to be enlightened, that means I'm coming into a greater awareness of the self, and a greater awareness of those who I'm connected to, my kinfolk. And if I'm coming into that greater awareness, then I just don't see myself just as a consumer. I just consume. No, I see myself as a producer, as a creator, as an innovator, to be able to innovate the unprecedented, that which has not been.
And you can't do that by yourself.
No.
You if you're gonna move, now you can consume stuff by yourself.
You can.
But if you're going to reproduce, it is almost impossible to reproduce. Reproduction as we know it in humanity has always required two. And that's why God says it's not good for it to be all in one thing. And he created male and female. And then the Proverbs, I believe, say, one of the wisdom books says two is better than one, because it is always in the engagement between people, which makes us interdependent beings. We were designed not to be independent or to be a fraction, but to be a whole. So that means that we are interdependent. And one of the things I hope to get to in this series, I want to get to the spirit of interdependence. And how do we have interdependent thoughts? Because, see, I want to replace the eye of your understanding in modern day terms to critical thinking. How do you critically think about others that's just like you, but not like you? They're like you because they are human beings, but they are not like you by reason of their particular. And so now you have to have as you engage with them, you have to have an appreciation for them, but know that you need to be with them in order to reproduce a community that God will be pleased with and a world that God will be pleased with.
Well, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up our session on tonight. If this session has been a blessing to you, this ministry has been a blessing to you, why don't you consider being a blessing to us via our giving mediums? We're going to put that on the screen so you can see that. Um, if you want to take time to be a blessing, that is the way you can go about it. And we would gratefully appreciate anything that you will share with us. This has been a great time of dialogue. We're going to get into this some more as we travel down this road of the immeasurable, living beyond average. Stay with us. Stick with us as we deal with this concept.
Yes.
Bishop is going to take us further and a little deeper down this
Deacon,
road.
I wanted to know if there are any questions or any comments that we did not see, that persons would like to make comments or anything. And I want to thank you for engaging me in this dialogue. We've been off of the air for a while because I had to retreat and get in a metamorphosis, and this is a new approach to it. I think it is always better when you have two is better than one. So I want to thank you for engaging with me in this dialogue, and I think God is going to expand our thinking as we move further.
Absolutely. Before we go, Bishop, why don't you close us out in prayer and just give us final words and blessing?
Lord, we thank you for this time and space in time. Lord, now that we are here, we ask of you that you would open up our thinking. Lord, let not the measures and the standards of the past cause us to be stuck. But God, as we pursue your will, your way, increase our desire, increase our ability to perceive and conceive in the realm of our imaginations, that we will reimagine our world and implement that imagination in such a time as this. This is my prayer for all peoples. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. And so this has been DCC Rewind. Thank you for joining us tonight. I want to thank Bishop again for sharing with us those truths. Take these truths and hide them in your heart. As we go off the air, we just want to say to you all, know your God, know yourself, and know one another. No longer live in average. Live beyond average. Let's go into the immeasurable. We'll see you next time. Take care. God bless.